I have a theory on why Kiwi farmers are so crazy. So, you know how most of the time when someone has a thread, there's people posting in it, but a lot of the time the people posting in it have, like, their own vendettas. Like, there are so few people posting anymore, apart from maybe, like, Vanquished Phoenix and Vesperus, Little Drip and Dynastia, to name a few. Most people, apart from those people and people like them, are posting because they have a vendetta against someone. So, Spraigheader, perfect example. If you look at everything he posts, he doesn't post in lolcow's threads a lot of the time. He posts in the threads of things he has personally invested himself in, like 764, his research into that, Torswats. And these aren't just cows to him. Some of these are people that he's spoken to. He has spoken to people in 764. He has spoken to people who were part of the whole Torswats thing. And that isn't like, I'm not saying he was friends with them, but he still sort of, embedded himself enough to do personal research on people, right? So people like that post in the thread. But because they have a vendetta, they'll exclusively post tweets or comments that make the lolcow or the person with the thread look crazy or look bad. Because obviously they have, a personal investment in this. So, for example, if I was posting in the owner of Lolcow Farms thread, or the previous owner, I wouldn't be posting things that made her look good. I would not be posting most of her stuff because it's not milky. I would not be posting the stuff where she wasn't making herself look bad, or where because why would I do that, right? Like, if I had a personal hatred of someone, I'm not going to obviously show them looking sane or looking good, right? So, bear in mind, most of the people doing the posting in these threads are people that hate the subject. So they will exclusively cherry pick tweets and posts and streams of theirs when they're at their worst. But because the rest of the Kiwis who don't have a personal interest in that lolcow but are just browsing, because they see that stuff, they assume that those are sort of the only tweets or content that they make. Because they are only getting their information from someone that has a vendetta against that person. So what happens is they only get 1%, right, of that lolcow's activity. So they start to assume that all of their worst moments, their most embarrassing moments, are their only moments. And then you get into this thing where you have a bunch of people who are essentially being gaslit by people with their vendettas. So there is a whole ass section of Kiwi Farms who has probably never read most people with Freds' tweets, most people with Freds' streams, most people with Freds' content. They just wait for someone like Spraigheader to plug a tweet. The problem is he plugs one tweet out of 100, and that tweet happens to be their most insane. So you have a whole lot of people who are gaslit into thinking the person they're trolling is the most insane schizo BPD person ever, when in reality all this is people being so lazy with research that they won't do their own. They wait for people who have a vendetta to only post the stuff that fits their narrative. So this is my theory on why they're so crazy, right? Because they are exclusively getting information from people that have a narrative to gaslight them with. They have something that they want them to believe in. And it doesn't have to be true. Like with Spraigheader, I have told that guy multiple times I disavow any abuse or like pedo shit that happens in 764. And that if it's happening, it's nothing to do with my friends. But he's not going to post that stuff on my thread because it doesn't make him look good. So do you see the issue? Do you see the problem that we have now? He won't post that stuff because it makes him look bad. Because if he posts the footage of me being sane and stable, then people will be like, why does she have a thread? You're just trying to make us hate this person. So they have a vested interest, the people posting in other people's threads, to make the lolcow look bad enough so that the other Kiwis buy their narrative and won't do further research. So we've got this whole scenario where we have people that have, like, only half the story. And I've realised a lot of the people that are fucking insane on KF probably are not actually that bad. It's just that they are too lazy to do their own research. So it ends up being a scenario in which they're getting half the story, they're replying to half the story, and therefore they think the person that they're talking about is a lot more insane than they are, or a lot more of a lolcow than they are, because they're only seeing a select tiny amount of their content. So this is my theory. I think a time in my thread this happened was, for example, when the whole cutting thigh arc, right? No one actually posted my commentary on what happened with that. They just made up loads of theories about who they thought it could be. Could it be Angry Canadian that did this? Could it be Anus Cabbage? Even though none of those people I knew at the time were responsible, because they hadn't done any research into what I had to say on the matter, they were nowhere near finding out who catfished me. And this is the problem with KF. It's because most of the time they're useless, and not because they don't have the skills to not be useless, but because they are only getting like 10% of the story. And this is why I think it's a bit of an issue, because essentially it's not really lolcowism if someone is only being presented as 1% of their presence. And that's my issue. Like with Teddy Feezer, everyone will upload when he quit streaming or when he had like that bad week where he got bullied. No one's going to upload him talking about all of the cool stuff he does, or him looking like a Chad, or him making a good post. No one's going to cap that stuff. It's like with Ralph. The people who A-log Ralph often have a personal vendetta against him. They'll cap his breakups. They'll cap him when he's had issues in the past with drugs. They will not cap the part where he's sober. They will not cap the part where he has good relationships. And like, for example, with Brian Dunn. I mean, you cannot tell me that Juan But Not Forgotten doesn't have a personal vendetta against Brian Dunn. This is someone who exists to document Brian's presence. That, in my opinion, is sad. Right? If you were existing to document, you know, like at least with Sprite Header, he's doing what he thinks is right? Like, there's an element of Sprite Header saying stuff like, well, I'm helping children who are the victims of X, Y, and Z, and that's all fine. But the problem with Juan is he exists to document someone who basically is just a bit of a spurg. But he's also nowhere near as much of a spurg as Juan makes him out to be. I mean, at the end of the day, if Brian was as bad as everyone says he is, he wouldn't have a fucking job. Like, as someone who has a job, I can tell you that if we were as big spurgs as our Fred portrays us as, we wouldn't be employed there. But the problem is, they won't talk about the fact that he has in detail, that he has like a job and therefore he can't be as insane as everyone says he is. They also won't mention the fact that Brian, a lot of the time, is probably doing what I am doing and trolling people, right? He probably plays in to the fact that people think he's crazy, and he plays into that fact, and therefore people, because they're Kiwi farmers, they can't decipher it from actual schizo posting. So the thing with a lot of the threads on Kiwi farms is it honestly just seems like a circle of misinformation. And that is my issue, because I can't express to people how not a cow someone is if you have to comb through their platform, their presence online and only talk about the things that make them look bad. That means they're not a lolcow. Because if someone is an actual lolcow, like Chris Chan, every post is milky as fuck, right? Like with Chris, everyone just gets so excited when he posts because they know it's going to be milky. They know that there's going to be some new insane shit happening. But with Brian Dunn, they wait for him to have a bad day, right? Or Ralph, they wait for them to have a bad day so that they spurg out. That is not lolcowism. Like, I'm sorry, I could see person of interest, right? I could see why people see those people as that. I suppose they are interesting in their own ways, right? But going as far as to call them lolcows, it doesn't seem that conducive with reality. And I know people don't want to hear this. And I know people are like, but Brian Dunn's such a lolcow. Think about why you think that, right? Do you think that because of anything Brian does? Or do you think that because of the content you've seen posted about him? Because my problem with KF is a lot of it is just selective material. And with selective material, the reason that I don't care about a lot of the stuff posted about me is because there is only so much mad I can get at people who purposely only upload some of my content so that they can push a narrative that I'm crazy. That is not something that I can be that mad about, because that's just kind of an L on their part. If you have to try really hard to make someone look crazy, they're probably not that crazy. But KF don't want to hear that. They'll say that that's cope. And I don't really think it is cope, because every journalist, everyone everywhere, has always done this. This is not new, right? The idea of only bringing up certain elements of someone's online behavior, that is peak journo behavior. That is stuff journos have done it for absolutely years. So I don't know why people are acting like that isn't something that people still do. But anyway, that's my theory. I'm honestly just bored and making like lunch, so that's the tea.